What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs bringing you a video for tonight's Christmas Showdown. Today we have Minnesota and New Orleans playing again. Finally get to see them play after the miracle in Minnesota. So it's a bit different. Not a lot, just a little bit, but yeah, we have some changes for this game. Drew Brees is going to be without Michael Thomas. Kirk Cousins does not have Stephon Diggs. He has Justin Jefferson. That's basically it offensively. Defensively, there's some injuries. Hendricks, I know if he's out, that's going to be huge. So definitely going to have to look at that. But let's get into the players that you will be able to pick. And just get right into it. So this one's a fun one. You got two players over 11,000. Dalvin Cook at 12K. Drew Brees, a $600 price difference from Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson at 9,200, which I think is a little low for a showdown. I would expect him to be easily above 10K for a showdown, but he's 9.2. So let's get into it. So Dalvin Cook is going against one of the best defenses against the running back, which is worrisome. It is. You can go and look at some of Dalvin Cook's recent games, and he gets above 10. The two games against Chicago, you look at his points against a really good run defense, he's still scoring above 15. Tampa Bay, another one, still score above 22. Seattle, 19. Colts, 17. So even against really good rush defenses, he still excels. So the 1,200 price point for a guy that's going to get a lot of volume, especially with Madison being out. With him being out, that's huge for Delvin Cook. That means whoever they do go for his backup isn't going to get as much volume. Matson was a decent running back when he filled in. He did really good, so they could rely on him. I don't even know who they're going to go to for a backup. Who they even have listed. Abdullah, yeah, we haven't seen him since Detroit, I think. So, yeah, I don't expect anything right there. So Dalvin Cook's probably a guy you want to have in your lines tonight. Not necessarily a must because, like I said, he is going against one of the best defenses against the rush, and especially in fantasy points, top 3 defense on fantasy points allowed to the running back. So it's a little worrisome, but honestly, my guy tonight that I think is due for a really good game is Kamara. Minnesota's got a terrible defense, pass and rush. And you look at Kamara's numbers last week, 11 for 54 on the rush, which is, you look at his rush attempts, and that's pretty standard for this year of how he's got, especially with Latavius Murray getting carries. But the thing that had me was his targets. He only had 6 targets last week in a game against Kansas City, which was a back and forth game. In a game without Michael Thomas, you would expect Kamara to get more targets. He didn't. I expect Kamara to get the double-digit targets tonight, especially against Minnesota, who allows a lot to running backs. Not as much in the receiving game, but definitely on the ground. Kamara is that guy. At 11-4, he's definitely worth putting in that captain spot. It's not going to kill you either. But it is going to make you play some different plays, but at the same time, you got to look at it as New Orleans is down 2 receivers, Trayvon Smith and Michael Thomas. So that allows you to free up salary, because if you are going to go a New Orleans receiver and it's not Emmanuel Sanders, and you look at Emmanuel Sanders, just hasn't had huge gains this year. We can go down, and I could talk about it later, but Juwan Johnson is definitely one of the guys that I think is set up for a good night. You look at his numbers, nothing really impressive, but he's going against a terrible defense. And that makes me like him just a little bit more than I would on any other game. Same thing with Humphrey. 4 targets, 29 yards, and a touchdown. The fact that he gets a touchdown look, brings value there. So, yeah, you can easily go Kamara and Cook, especially in the flex. If you put them both in the flex, you still have a 6,600 average remaining salary, which isn't bad at all. So, for instance, we could put Drew Brees in there still at 54, put Justin Jefferson, you have 36. Now, granted, it's not great for a captain spot, but if we were to go like a Johnson, like I said, then you go and easily get Lutz in there. Like, it's not out of the ordinary, but yeah. Quarterback play tonight, I'm not high on either one. The one I would have a little more lean to is Drew Brees, just because the matchup, Minnesota's defense, not good. They haven't been playing good either. They just been playing really poor defense, allowing a lot of extra yards, allowing a lot of deep catches, yards after the catch, all that stuff. Drew Brees just, he came back last week and got 20 fantasy points. That's not terrible for a guy that just came off injury, especially against Kansas City defense, whose pass defense has been pretty good, and they've stayed pretty consistent. But you look at his numbers, 44% pass completion, which is worrisome. But like I said, it's still Kansas City. He's just coming back off an injury. He still threw for 3 touchdowns and 234 yards. So 20 fantasy points for a quarterback that just came back off injury against a pretty good pass defense. It's really good and makes me like him against Minnesota. On the contrary, I do think that it always happens later in the year that running backs start to get more and more volume, just because of where the games are played and all that, and teams rely on them for the postseason, stuff like that. You're going to have to run the ball, so that's why I think Kamara is probably my favorite play tonight. But Drew Brees, I do like him. If you can get like I said, if you can make it work to where you can get all 3 of these guys in your lineup and still have a pretty good line, I'm all for it. Kirk Cousins, I think Kirk Cousins is going to have one of those games to where we ask, how is Kirk Cousins getting paid that much? He hasn't been playing terrible. I mean, you look at his numbers and he's thrown 9 touchdowns in the last 4 games and only 2 interceptions, which is unlike Kirk Cousins. But at the same time, he does have 13 interceptions on the year, which is right around an interception a game, and New Orleans defense is getting about an interception a game. So the likeness of the Saints defense to get an interception here, especially for betting, that's a pretty good bet to get. That's something that you look for in bets, is consistency. Saints haven't gotten an interception in 4 weeks, which for a defense like New Orleans has, capable of getting those takeaways, this is a game I see them getting an interception. So if you're placing bets, that's a bet I have already, is Kirk Cousins to throw a pick. But for DraftKings wise, it makes me like their defense. But yeah, I can't really see him exploding for more than 20 plus fantasy points. It's not to say that it can't happen, especially when you look at all his pass attempts. I mean, it's crazy seeing Kirk Cousins throw over 40 times in a game, especially back-to-back weeks. But he was playing a Carolina defense, and scored 28 points, and then struggled against Jacksonville for 43. And then you look at Tampa Bay and Chicago, 2 better defenses. He's throwing a little less, but it's touchdowns in those 2 games, 3 touchdowns in 2 games, 1 interception. So, yeah, nothing special, and he's playing a really good defense that needs to win tonight. It's not like they're on the verge of not making playoffs or anything like that, but there's things that playoff teams fight for. You either fight for a playoff spot or you fight for home advantage, which is huge in the playoffs. So New Orleans is going to be playing for that. That's for sure. They're in a losing streak right now that they want to snap. And I think New Orleans wins this game pretty convincingly. But we just saw the Jets beat the Rams and the Bengals beat the Steelers. So at this point, anything is possible towards the end of the year. But yeah, let's get off the quarterback. So yes on Drew Brees, no on Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson, Emmanuel Sanders, the top 2 receivers on the slate. Adam Thielen, only $600 cheaper than Justin Jefferson. Thielen is going to have a tougher matchup with Lattimore. Even though Lattimore is allowed a lot more than he usually does in his career, I believe Jefferson is going to go against Jenkins, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Justin Jefferson is a candidate for Rookie of the Year, and it's clear why. He's putting up numbers that we haven't seen a rookie wide receiver put up in quite some time. And yeah, like with Kirk Cousins throwing the 35 plus passes, we've seen Justin Jefferson get 8 at the lowest and around a 12 average for the other 2 games. Before then, we haven't seen a whole lot, but he was getting open. His fantasy points lately have been ridiculous too, and he's only gotten 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So those fantasy points that he produces, especially on DraftKings, those are crazy good numbers for only scoring 3 touchdowns in those 4 games. But he's a guy that you definitely want to have. You can go Thielen if you need to save the salary. It's not like his matchup is any more different, especially with Thielen getting a lot of the red zone targets. You could lean towards Adam Thielen on that, but at the contrary, you look at the 2 last games against pretty good pass defenses. He only got targeted 7 times. Granted, they went with Dalvin Cook a lot more and some of their other receivers, but Jacksonville, and then the game against Dallas, he got 22 targets on that. So, and then he's got 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games. So he's definitely a touchdown guy. He's definitely a red zone guy. So if you need to save the $600, you can go Thielen. It's not like it's a terrible matchup. I just like Jefferson a little more. Emmanuel Sanders has got a good matchup tonight. It's crazy to see someone like Emmanuel Sanders, who succeeded in Denver, come to New Orleans, especially with Michael Thomas being out. You think his volume, his targets, all that would go up, and they really haven't. He should be a guy that's getting the 9 to 10 targets a game. I'm not saying that he's anything special of being crazy good. He is a good receiver, don't get me wrong, but he's not one of those elite receivers. But if you're still taking that number 1 receiver role, you would expect your volume to be up, and it's not. He's only got 4 touchdowns on the year, and they're very spaced out. It's not like he's had a really good consistent stretch. The only consistent stretch that you could say is right here, Green Bay, Detroit, and then the Chargers, of having about a 15-point game and then exploded for 27 against a terrible defense, Chargers. But like I said, it favors the run game, and I feel like there's value in other places, receiver-wise. Emmanuel Sanders might be the number 1 guy tonight and be one of the high-scoring players. But if you're going to go 2 out of the 3 of these players, a Jefferson, Thielen, Brees, Kamara, Cook, if you get 3 of those players, it's going to be pretty hard to get to Emmanuel Sanders as well. So you need Emmanuel Sanders to go off if you're going to be fading Thielen, Jefferson, Brees, Kamara, Cook. You're going to have to fade almost 2 of those guys just to afford Emmanuel Sanders. So you need him to produce like a 15-point game easy tonight to compete with that. Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is Taysom Hill. He got a touchdown again last week. And it seems like whenever New Orleans wants Taysom Hill in the game, he's going to do one of 2 things. He's going to fumble the ball or he's going to score a touchdown, it seems. But at $6,000 for a showdown, at a guy that might score a touchdown, it's not worth it. It's not worth the $6,000 that you're going to be paying for a guy that might get in and might score a touchdown. So not playing Taysom Hill at all tonight. Jared Cook has got a little rough matchup against Minnesota. He is 5,600, and same thing. We have yet to see Jared Cook have an explosive year. Seems like for most tight ends, besides the select few of Waller and Kelsey, we really haven't seen tight ends have explosive games this year, and Jared Cook is just that. The matchup, like I said, is not crazy good for him. He's got 6 touchdowns on the year, 30 receptions, 379 yards, which isn't Jared Cook like, but with all the injuries that have happened this year, it's a little upsetting that he's not getting more volume. But 5,600, still not one of my plays that I entirely love. I'd rather pay down for Irv Smith. With Kyle Rudolph out tonight, Irv Smith is a guy that is going to get all the tight end reps. They might throw another tight end in there, but Irv Smith is definitely going to be their receiving tight end. And you look at his numbers, and for the most part, they're pretty consistent when he played. Around 4 targets, the yardage all over the place. Some he gets a small amount. A couple of the games you saw him get a big, and he's only had 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games, but those are his only touchdowns. Saints allow, it's about mid-tier for tight ends in fantasy points, but at 5,200 if you have to decide between Jared Cook, Latavius Murray, and Irv Smith. Probably go Irv Smith, even though Latavius Murray isn't in a bad spot. You just always worry about how much they're going to use him. I mean, you look at his attempts, and like I said, Kamara's been pretty consistent of his attempts, somewhere between 11 and 15 attempts a game. But with Latavius Murray, you look at his rushing attempts, and they're right there. Like, he's getting a lot of rushing attempts too, and against a terrible defense, he could get in the game and get some of those rushing attempts. Definitely steal a touchdown or 2 off of Kamara. You look, he's had two touchdown games. It's just the targets. Like, you see Kamara is gonna, like I said, in my opinion, how I just see it playing out, Kamara's gonna get a 10 target game. If they're blowing out Minnesota, Latavius Murray is going to get in, and he is going to get snaps. Has potential to steal a touchdown off of Kamara in the red zone. But that's a risk you pay for 4,800 backup running back. If he was like 2,000, I mean, it probably make me love playing him. But Irv Smith at 5,200, I think I like just a little more than Latavius Murray. It's not a bad play at all, though. Saints defense, if you don't like Minnesota tonight, you think, they're going to get shut out for below 17 points, let's say, the 2 touchdown and field goal. Saints defense is a really good matchup. Like I said, Kirk Cousins is an interception machine. 13 interceptions this year, almost won a game. That offensive line isn't anything special. But Saints defense hasn't, like, you look at the points allowed, it doesn't seem like Saints defense. Against Tampa Bay, against Atlanta, against Denver, yeah, that's the Saints defense. But a lot of these games are allowing the big high 20s, low 30 points. Granted, they're not allowing more than that, but still, their fantasy points are pretty decent. Not where they usually been in seasons past, but game like this, that defense has to step up. They're going to step up. I like them at 4,200 for a play. Dan Bailey, Will Lutz, probably lean toward Will Lutz just because of how much New Orleans is going to move the ball. May not get the touchdowns. Will Lutz, we've seen him be one of the more top-tier kickers. Granted, this year he's missed 5 field goals, but he has hit a 53-yard field goal early in the season. Really hasn't had that distance field goals, and you look at the last 3 games, and he hasn't made 1 field goal in the last 3 weeks, which is a little worrisome. But he's going to get you the guaranteed fantasy points for the extra points, which should be around 3 or 4. If he kicks another 2 field goals, which pretty much his averages is about the 2 mark, maybe goes higher, seen lower. But he's going to get you around a 10, 11 fantasy point, which is really nice for a player at 3,800. Dan Bailey, I think he's a little worse just because, like I said, of how bad Minnesota's matchup is offensively, but he does get the attempts. He does. He's only had one game where he hasn't had an attempt. The only thing that's worrisome is how many field goals he's missed this season. He's kicking 70%. 2014. The last 3 weeks, he's missed 4 field goals, which is definitely worrisome, especially when you look against Tampa Bay. If he scores those 9 points, that game is there. The game against Jacksonville, if he makes an extra field goal, it's not as close. So, yeah, that's definitely worrisome in close games for Dan Bailey to come in clutch. Conklin is the guy that is going to be the other tight end. His numbers the last 2 weeks, I think, are really good for stepping in that role. Unless there's something that's going to keep him getting that volume, I don't see him doing the same thing tonight. I think they go back to Irv Smith for being the top guy, but maybe if he has another good game, that's going to be their guy going forward, so they might give him the volume for the end of the year. I just really can't see it. I think teams just aren't worrying about him since he's a backup tight end for the most part, or a tight end too. Vikings defense, I do not like them tonight. Just not good overall fantasy point wise. 12 interceptions on the year is the only thing that makes you like them, but they just give up a lot of points. The offense puts them in very bad positioning, and they give up a lot of yards, so not high in the Vikings defense at all. The wide receivers that I would pay down for tonight is definitely Humphrey or Johnson. Like I said, I'm kind of leaning towards Johnson right now, but Humphrey did get the touchdown last week, so also makes you lean towards him since they're going to give him touchdown red zone targets. So those are my guys that I look for. Everything else is pretty much, it just depends on if there is any injuries or anything that pops up, but there's nothing else down here that I would pay lower for. Maybe if you see some news about Austin Carr or Tommy Lee Lewis, who, Tommy Lee Lewis I did not know he actually got waived, but so Austin Carr would be the only other guy. But yeah, to me, it's Johnson and Humphrey, and guys, I'll just go over something I like tonight. So I do like Kamara, like I mentioned. I do think having Dalvin Cook there is good. You can have a Drew Brees. Can have Drew Brees tonight. We'll go down. Put the Saints defense in there because we like the Saints defense. Go down. Put Johnson in there. Got 43. And for the hell of it, let's just put Will Lutz in there. Go definitely New Orleans heavy on this line. Something I like. But definitely not going to be my official line, but yeah, just something that you could plug and chuck in. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys do enjoy the video, leave a like and subscribe. If you guys are interested in joining us, the link for our website is in the description down below. We do have our NBA content out as well. We do have card breaks. You can head to the card break screen, show you where to go for all that, so definitely check that out if you guys are interested in that. So thank you guys for watching. Have a Merry Christmas, and we will see you in the next video.